Welcome to our noon edition of Arirang News. Here are the stories making the headlines at this hour. A month since thousands of trainee doctors walked out from their posts, professors from 16 medical schools have also decided to resign. Their collective resignation will take place next week. Voting in the Russian presidential election ended on Sunday, and early results have come out as expected. Vladimir Putin is set to win his fifth term as the country's leader, giving him 6 more years in power. North Korea fired a ballistic missile earlier this morning. Their missile test is the first in 2 months and follows a 10-day large-scale annual joint military drill between South Korea and the United States. It's already been a month since thousands of junior doctors walked out on their jobs in protest over the government's medical school quota hike. Now professors from medical schools have decided to follow suit starting March 25th. Kim Bo-kyung starts us off.
Junior doctors are not alone in deciding to walk away from their work sites. Professors at medical schools have also chosen to submit resignation letters starting next Monday, March 25th. Professors from 20 or half of South Korea's medical schools were present at a meeting late on Friday, with professors from 16 schools deciding overwhelmingly to resign. The 4 remaining schools are reportedly collecting opinions over whether and when to join in. Resignation submissions are set to start on the 25th, but dates could differ depending on each medical school's schedule. Professors from Seoul National University's medical school had previously decided to file resignations starting this Monday, but have decided to reschedule accordingly. The chief of the medical professors group strongly urged the government to back down from the plan to raise the enrollment quotas at med schools from 3,058 to 5,058 per year starting in 2025.
We desperately ask for a first step to be made to start discussions. We ask the government even more. Please let go of the figure of 2,000. Otherwise, we cannot start discussions at all.
To this, Health Minister Cho Kyung expressed serious concerns during a meeting at the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters held on Monday morning. While underlining that it is not acceptable to negotiate while holding people's lives hostage, the minister urged professors to work with the government so that trainee doctors could return to duties.
We should not negotiate over people's lives in any case. Please persuade trainee doctors and students who left hospitals and schools to return and participate in discussing reform tasks for the improvement of the healthcare system.
The minister said he would continue talks with directors not only from the 5 major hospitals, but also those at national hospitals. Those talks are slated for Monday and Tuesday. He also mentioned that intensive care units and emergency rooms would be closely monitored to prevent medical disruptions. As part of efforts to improve the healthcare system, the ministry announced additional reformative measures for the fee-for-service system. Also, regarding previous plans to inject some $7.5 billion for essential medical departments by 2028, it gave specific guidelines for compensation. $3.75 billion for surgical and internal medicine departments, and over $2 billion for pediatrics and childbirth. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
The third Democracy Summit will be held in Seoul for 3 days starting on Monday, continuing the initiative to protect societies from various threats to human rights, freedom, and other democratic principles. The initiative began in 2021 by President Joe Biden, and it is the first time to be hosted independently by another country. Oh Soo-young has the details.
President Yoon called for joint efforts to defend and advance democratic freedoms for future generations amid fast-evolving digital changes that threaten freedom, human rights and prosperity. This came at the opening ceremony of the Third Summit for Democracy, which kicked off in Seoul on Monday, gathering world leaders, civil society and the private sector under the theme of Democracy for the Future Generation.
개인의 자유와 창의를 북돋우는 활기찬 민주주의는 청년들의 역량과 기회를 확장하는 촉진제가 될 것이며 이를 통해 우리의 미래 세대는 민주주의에 대해 더욱 확고한 믿음을 갖게 될 것입니다.
Citing fake news and disinformation as major threats to democracy, Yoon said artificial intelligence and new digital tools pose a double-edged sword to societies and individuals. He also warned against a growing digital divide between nations that would widen economic gaps and, in turn, increase the democracy divide. He called for efforts to ensure digital progress goes hand in hand with democracy. This year's summit begins with a ministerial-level meeting co-hosted by the United Kingdom and Ecuador, followed by an expert roundtable on democratic processes to address cyber threats and foster digital innovation in a way that respects human rights and freedom in online spaces. On the second day, members of civil society will hold discussions and workshops on related themes. The plenary session of world leaders will be held virtually on Wednesday evening Seoul time, with President Yoon chairing the session on technology, elections and fake news. Kenyan President William Ruto will lead a session on the Global South, and Danish leader Mette Frederiksen on inclusive society and youth empowerment. The Summit for Democracy was launched in 2021 under the leadership of US President Joe Biden amid the worrying rise of autocratic leaders and authoritarian governance around the world. Deeming South Korea a champion of democracy, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Monday remarked on the significance of the country hosting the summit independently for the first time outside the United States. Blinken and South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-ho called for collective efforts by governments and society to strengthen confidence in democracy around the world, with the two officials scheduled to have a luncheon meeting, likely to focus on North Korea's missile provocation earlier in the day, alongside topics including democratic cooperation, strengthening the ROK-US alliance, as well as regional and global issues. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is on the verge of winning his fifth term as the country's leader with overwhelming support. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky slammed Putin for being power-hungry and said he should be tried at The Hague for war crimes. Lee Seung-jae has more.
To no one's surprise, Russian President Vladimir Putin is set to win his fifth term as the country's leader. According to a number of Russian opinion poll organizations, exit polls show that an overwhelming number of voters had picked Putin. Russia's Central Election Commission also revealed that with 60% of the votes counted, Putin had an overwhelming lead, with over 87% voting for the incumbent leader. On the verge of winning yet another presidential election, Putin on Sunday called on Russia to become stronger and more effective, thanking the Russian people for voting. He also mentioned the soldiers fighting in what he referred to as special operations against Ukraine, while emphasizing that the source of Russian power is the Russian people. A win for Putin will mean he will be in office until at least 2030, when he will be turning 77, making him Russia's longest-serving leader since Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. Putin has had little to no challenge during his rule, with most opposition candidates either dead, jailed, or barred from running for office. Russian presidential elections were held every 4 years until the law was changed in 2008 to extend the term to 6 years, while more constitutional changes in 2020 removed the presidential term limits. However, one person ensured that Putin didn't get her vote, as Yulia Navalnaya, the widow of Alexei Navalny, said Sunday that she wrote her late husband's name on the ballot. Navalny's supporters also held demonstrations at polling stations throughout Russia while voting for other candidates or invalidating votes. In a video message on Sunday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky criticized Putin, calling him sick with power, adding that the Russian leader is willing to do anything to stay in power. Zelensky also stressed that everything Putin has done in occupying Ukraine is a crime, emphasizing that he should be tried at The Hague for war crimes. The Ukrainian leader also said that there's no legitimacy in the Russian elections. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
As the official candidate registration for the 22nd general election is set to begin this Thursday, rival parties are finishing up their internal nomination processes. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
Rival parties' candidate nomination processes for April's general election are coming to a close. The ruling People Power Party on Sunday nominated 3 more candidates to finish up its official nomination process. They have nominated candidates for all of the 254 electoral districts in the country during the process, which lasted more than a month. This is the first time in 16 years that the PPP have filled in names for all districts. Of the 113 PPP members in the assembly as of February, when the nomination process started, 57.3% received official nominations for the district they represent. The average age of the nominees is around 58. The Democratic Party is also finishing up its nominations, finalizing candidates for 250 districts as of Monday morning. Of the 163 DP members of the current assembly, 63 members, or 38.7%, did not receive official nomination for the district they represent. The average age of nominees is around 57. On Sunday, the party held a special ceremony at the National Assembly, handing out certificates of nomination to its candidates. Meanwhile, proportional representation candidates who aren't elected to represent a certain district but are elected based on voter support for their party representation are also being listed. The PPP-created satellite party, the People Future Party, is soon expected to announce its list of proportional representation nominees, while the Democratic Alliance of Korea, a satellite party formed by the DP and other opposition parties, including the Progressive Party and the New Progressive Union, have finalized their list of nominees. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
North Korea fired what is presumed to be multiple short-range ballistic missiles towards the East Sea this morning. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff detected several SRBMs at 7:44 a.m. launched toward the East Sea from the Pyongyang area. The launch comes over a month after North Korea fired multiple rounds of cruise missiles towards the East Sea. It is the second ballistic missile launch of the year, with the previous launch coming in January. South Korea's military says it has strengthened surveillance and vigilance in preparation for additional launches and is maintaining a full readiness posture by closely cooperating with U.S. and Japanese authorities. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said he hopes to collaborate with South Korea's Samsung Electronics and SK hynix to create AI chips. The announcement was made last Thursday during the K Startup and OpenAI Matching Day held at OpenAI headquarters in San Francisco. Altman made a surprise appearance at the event to select 10 K startups that will collaborate with OpenAI. When asked about the possibility of a collaboration between the US AI company and Samsung Electronics and SK hynix in manufacturing AI chips, he said he's visited the two companies twice in the past 6 months, calling them fantastic companies. Altman visited South Korea in June of 2023 and January this year, and his visit attracted attention amid reports that he was working to establish an AI semiconductor alliance to develop his own AI semiconductor. President Yoon Suk-yeol emphasized the importance of playing sports for children as he showed off his batting skills in front of MLB players. This came on Saturday during Yoon's visit to a baseball event at Yongsan Children's Garden, where children learn from players from MLB's San Diego Padres visiting for the Seoul series, including Kim Ha-sung. Yoon encouraged the young baseball players to cherish this experience, saying playing sports will help them become good leaders. The event was hosted by former MLB star Park Chan-ho, who boasts the most career MLB wins of any Asian-born pitcher. Yoon gifted Park a picture of them both at the White House State Dinner, while Park gave the president a glove made to celebrate 30th years since his debut. 300 children from elementary school teams, U.S. Forces families, and multicultural families also attended the event. Jeju Island will focus on becoming a leader in new industries and the resolution of global issues, all through direct cooperation with cities in different countries. Our correspondent Park Gon-woo went to Jeju himself to find out more.
Jeju Island, a tourist mecca in South Korea, is taking steps toward becoming a pioneer of international diplomacy between local governments. And as part of that aim, Jeju has targeted becoming a leader in new industries, including space technology and urban air mobility, and solving global issues such as the climate crisis, while collaborating with cities in other countries.
Subnational diplomacy is needed to increase the number of tourists and promote exports overseas instead of just focusing on the metropolitan area.
While speaking about the importance of sustainable tourism, he also said Jeju will focus on decarbonization by utilizing renewable energy and implementing new transportation methods such as UAM. To share related plans, ambassadors to Korea from 25 countries, including France, Lebanon, and Guatemala were invited to Jeju from Friday to Saturday as part of a diplomacy program. A visit to a factory run by Jeju's Hamdasu, a local public enterprise water brand that is consistently working to improve its carbon footprint, was one of the main items on the agenda.
They have been taking measures to take care of all the issues regarding climate change. And on that regard, this is something what the world needs.
During their stay, the ambassadors also experienced the cultural aspects of Jeju. Traditional performances were put on for the ambassadors, while traditional food made from regional products, including red-banded lobster, abalone, and sea urchin were served, so that they could feel the taste of Jeju. Hiking on the famous Jeju Orle trails was another itinerary item for the diplomats to enjoy.
I was very impressed, of course, by the nature of Jeju, which is really very fascinating, with the beautiful sea and volcanoes and flowers.
He also spoke about future collaborative plans with Jeju.
As Jeju is developing green energy, green mobilities, and as in France, we are also working very hard to transition to that kind of future decarbonization. There's a lot that we can accomplish together.
Along with these efforts, Jeju also aims to host the APEC summit in November next year. All eyes are on whether the city will be chosen to host the event. 박건우, Arirang News, Jeju.
On the cultural front, recent data from the Korea Tourism Organization showed that of the 11 million overseas tourists who visited the country last year, more than 1/3 were 30 years or younger. The Harvard-Radcliffe Orchestra from the United States is among them, and our correspondent Song Yu-jin spoke with some orchestra members on why they chose Korea this time and what we can expect.
It's the oldest orchestra in the United States. With a history spanning over 2 centuries, the Harvard-Radcliffe Orchestra is composed of more than 100 Harvard University students. And while they may be students, their performances do not fall behind those of professional musicians. Since 1962, the HRO has been touring worldwide, gracing stages in over 18 countries across 4 continents. This year, they're back in Korea, a country close to their hearts and one they last visited in 2015.
Very good and collaborative relationship with Korea. We have a lot of alumni who are here in Korea. A lot of our students are Koreans or with Korean heritage. Korea is, of course, a particularly good place from a classical music standpoint. It's very advanced, which makes it a much more rewarding experience.
For these young musicians, touring isn't just about playing to bigger crowds. It's a chance to harmonize with diverse cultures, creating a symphony of understanding.
Yeah, just to have a lot of collaboration across different cultures and across with a unified vision of that music can bring people together, whether we speak the same language as I was saying before, or whether we're from different places.
This is my first time in the country, even though I guess I am Korean, 100% Korean. I've never been to Korea. I've never even been to Asia, and it's been great just kind of exploring what the culture is like here and get.
Their Seoul concert, which kicked off the orchestra's tour, was all about inclusion and harmony. Together with Korea's Beautiful Mind Orchestra, which is comprised of students with disabilities, they performed Arirang Fantasy, a variation of the Korean folk song Arirang, and Mambo by the late Leonard Bernstein, a distinguished Harvard alum.
It makes me feel proud when I play the violin.
I can touch people through music and give them hope. Playing the flute gives me hope and confidence because it makes me feel that I can also do something meaningful.
The Harvard-Radcliffe Orchestra strikes a chord that resonates beyond barriers, showing that music truly is a universal language. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. French President Emmanuel Macron said Russia will be asked to agree to a ceasefire in Ukraine during the upcoming Paris Olympics. Macron was speaking in an interview shown on Ukrainian television on Saturday. In response, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said France should first stop its weapon supplies to Ukraine, adding that Macron should have proposed the same ceasefire for the Middle Eastern conflict. Macron's interview comes after the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, said last week she would prefer it if Russians and Belarusians don't come to the Paris Olympics. The International Olympic Committee has previously condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 on account of it breaching the Olympic truce of promoting peace and cooperation through the power of sports. Protesters in Israel blocked major roads and scuffled with police in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem on Saturday evening as they call for new elections and an immediate hostage deal. Over the past few weeks, protesters have routinely interrupted traffic. However, Saturday was the first time demonstrators in Jerusalem blocked the roads at Paris Square. The protesters sang the Israeli national anthem and carried placards that read "Election now, and you will not stop us." A protester named Rimon Nissan said, "We're here to protest this government that hasn't been acting for the majority of people in Israel for a while now. It's creating more tension between Arabs and Jewish people. We think it's actively harming us during the war and beyond it." In Hong Kong, 12 people were sentenced to prison on Saturday for their role in the storming of the city's Legislative Council building during the pro-democracy protests in 2019. Hong Kong actor Gregory Wong received a sentence of over 6 years from the district court on Saturday, while former student leader Althea Suan and activists Ventus Lau and Owen Chow all received jail terms ranging between 4.5 years to 6 years and 10 months. The majority of the defendants were found guilty of rioting. 2 journalists were also fined less than $200 each for illegally entering the Legislative Council chamber. Protesters stormed Hong Kong's Legislative Council building in July 2019 as public anger exploded over an extradition bill that will allow authorities to send people to mainland China for trial. Reuters commented that it was the boldest populist movement against the Chinese Communist Party since the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests in Beijing. Cities around the world turned green over the weekend to celebrate St. Patrick's Day on March 17th in honor of Ireland's patron saint. In central Tokyo, bagpipers, marching bands, and dancers performed around Harajuku, celebrating the Irish tradition with green outfits and shamrocks. In New York, Manhattan began turning green on Saturday as large crowds prepared for the annual St. Patrick's Day parade. Politicians and members of the New York City Fire and Police Services march alongside performers and bands on Sunday. Ireland's victory in rugby's Six Nations on Saturday added an extra dimension to celebrations as the Irish took their second title in a row. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It was a cold start to the new week. Spring cold triggered cold wave alerts to many inland regions, with morning temperatures dropping nearly 10 degrees lower than yesterday. But highs are soaring fast this afternoon, leading to wide temperature differences. Most regions are seeing highs in the low to mid-teens, similar to slightly lower than Sunday. Seoul getting up to 13 degrees, Gwangju, Gyeongju topping out at 17 degrees Celsius. Mostly sunny skies expected across Korea. Meanwhile, most of the eastern parts of the country and Chungcheong-do provinces are under a dry weather advisory along with strong winds, so fire safety is a must. Meanwhile, the dry air should ease with spring precipitation in the forecast tomorrow. It will either rain or snow from central and Jeollabuk-do province, gradually spreading to the rest of the country. Mountainous regions in Gangwon-do province will see snow instead. Be mindful of chilly mornings this week and do dress accordingly. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have for you at this hour. We'll bring you more updates at the same time tomorrow.